What's up, guys? It has been a little while. I hope you're all doing well. I haven't really been on social media this summer, and it is for good reason. I've been on a new path in my work and actually started working on a natural history film. So this is the first time that it has made part of my professional career. I've been using a red all summer, which has been a totally new thing for me to learn and become familiar with. I've become so obsessed with this new style of filming that I actually bought myself a red and am ready to just go out on my own now and see what I can make in Iceland and in the mountains here with that. I wish I could say more about the natural history thing, but unfortunately it's all secret. Most of my summer I spent living in a tent. So I've been in my tent probably more than in this apartment, which has been pretty amazing. Definitely start to miss your bed after a while, but being in nature and being able to wake up in nature every day, even if it's a storm, whatever the weather is, it is an amazing feeling and just brings you closer to the earth. This summer has been a really strange time in Iceland. We've had a wave of having tourists here. First it started with no one at all, which was a surreal time to be here. Me and my friends went driving all around the country, staying in a tent, of course, because that's what I've become, literally a tent bum. Tent bum. Seeing nature take hold over people, that's been the biggest thing that I've seen this summer, especially in that early time where there was no tourists here. I've never seen so much wildlife around the highway. There was reindeer just walking on the road with no care in the world. There were birds everywhere. Maybe I was just noticing them more, but it was really interesting to just see nature in its purest form without any humans. I really did feel like a wild animal at times out there.
So, here we are at the famous Seljalandsfoss, and there is absolutely nobody here. Skogafoss as well, completely empty. It's just a surreal sight.
Then we opened the borders basically for tourists to come, and that was amazing. I started to see people here and there. There were very few in the beginning, but then it opened up and it was amazing to see the economy start to rebuild a little bit, and many of my friends' companies were starting to get actually quite busy. But the strangest thing and most awesome thing was to see how many locals started to travel here. I've never seen so many camper vans on the road. Every campsite was full, and I think Icelanders were starting to rediscover their country. This summer I've been obviously heavily focused on the natural history production that I've been working on. But I have managed to have some of my own trips in between, basically just take a break from filming and focus on photography. And I'm pretty stoked with some of the images that I've got. Not having time to put photography first is a really new feeling for me. I'm still trying to figure out a balance between filmmaking and photography. I've always taken the approach that photography must come first. And I remember back in my vlogging days, which were awesome, just roaming around the country, not a care in the world.
In a battle with the sheep for the perfect composition. I've been following him for about 5 minutes. And he keeps looking at me and then trying to trail off, but I've been copying his trails. And he knows it. He knows that I'm getting the shot.
I did feel at that time that it was becoming more of a focus than my photography itself. That kind of ended that era for me, and I wouldn't say that I am exactly back in that state of mind again, because focusing on filmmaking and being bound to less flexibility in editing has meant that I've focused on new things in nature that I might not have necessarily looked at before as being of highest priority, which strangely enough as a photographer for me was just light in general. Being out, especially for sunrise missions, never really took priority for me because I've always just preferred the light that I get on cloudy days in the brightest time of the day when you get these bursts of light coming down through the mountains. Now with video, I've started to really focus on finding lighting situations that are optimal and unique, and that has meant many sleepless nights this summer. Many of you who have taken my online workshop where I focus on editing styles and manipulating images to create the lighting environments that you want, you will know that that has always been the way that I've worked, and that is how I've built the style that I have today. Now having this new outlook and knowing how beautiful and how unique having these amazing lighting moments with the sunrise, the sunset, there's just so many different ways that I can now go out and perceive nature. Who knows where this will go? I'm very excited about everything that I've learned this summer, and I can't wait to go more into it with these videos as we go forward. This brings me on to the next subject that I want to talk about today. I thought it could be cool, I don't think I've done this on my YouTube channel before, to talk a little bit about how I ended up in Iceland. So moving to Iceland became a significant thought for me in 2014. And that obviously meant that I had to figure out a work path and figure out a visa. Being from Australia, which I don't know how many of you actually know that. My accent is kind of messed up from speaking 2 languages now, but I'm originally from Perth in Australia, and I grew up there with this adventure bug inside that loved going and just being in the bush. My dad would take me all the time riding motorbikes and just being muddy. So that has always stuck with me. And then when I first came to Iceland, it was one of the first times where I've reconnected with the adventure lover that I was when I was growing up. And I also had a lot of first time experiences here. It's the first place I saw falling snow, the first place that I experienced driving on an icy winter road. It was the first place that I saw northern lights, first place I saw glaciers or a mountain peak that was a volcano. And I saw all these things alone. I was traveling alone, so I had a lot of very special moments early on those first couple of trips. Moving forward to 2014, I knew I had to get a visa somehow, and I figured out that I could study here and become a resident based on a student visa. So then came the thought, what should I study? And it was either some kind of Viking studies, which don't get me wrong, would be really cool, but I didn't think it would be so practical. So the second approach was to learn Icelandic. And that became my avenue for living here, was to come and study the language, which I am ever so grateful for because it has, well, taken many years to perfect. Still by no means have perfected it. I can just get away with speaking if I need to now. This has become an amazing tool for integrating into the country. And this was my way in. So after packing my bags and moving to Iceland, I began my studies in Icelandic, and I knew absolutely no one when I came here. So step one was to find friends and begin to integrate a little bit into Reykjavik. This took some time. Photography was by no means a profession of mine yet. It was just a hobby, something that I really enjoyed, and Iceland and photography were both just my passions in life and still are. And I thought, why not come here and see where it goes? Just take a risk. Somewhat of a big risk moving across the world. I think it's 15,000 kilometers from Perth to Iceland. I was working in a hostel and I had just finished my degree in accounting. So moving to Iceland was a way for me to try something completely new. I don't think many people take that jump, and I highly encourage you to try it out. If you're thinking of going somewhere, obviously now is not the right time, but when the world opens up and this becomes a possibility, this has been the biggest life-changing decision I've ever had in my life and has shaped my entire future. And those are some pretty big words, but that's really how it was. It took many years for me to settle. The first year especially was a struggle financially, huge struggle. I moved here with, I think, 10,000 Australian dollars to my name and my camera and one wide lens, and just started from there. I think people began to resonate with my story and my view of Iceland early on in those days because I was focusing more on the cloudy, stormy weather and not the blue sky days, which everyone here seemed to be photographing and talking about back then. There were not many people that I could see around me that had the same interest in the stormy, dark, extreme weather days. And this really became my niche in the beginning. As I went through that, I obviously found many different ways to edit my photos and started to grow a social media presence, which was amazing and just constantly mind-blowing that people actually cared about what I was doing here. Whilst I felt like I was starting to get successful in my photography, I was still going through some very extreme financial difficulties to live here. It is an extremely expensive place. You really have to plan out your finances in order to make it work here. As a freelancer, there are, of course, some insane struggles. The fact that you can do what you want to do with your life as your job and be able to not have to take a holiday in order to do the thing that you want to do in photography, but to actually live in that lifestyle, made every struggle absolutely worth it. And now I have an entirely new path, which has led to this setup, this studio setup, and I want to hear from all of you what you would like me to post on this channel from here on out. I have the studio space. I'd love to share some of my thoughts on cameras and different types of tools that I take out into nature when I'm shooting. And yeah, basically just leave a comment below what you would like for me to post. I would love to hear about it. And for now, I've been talking for much longer than I thought I would. So I'm gonna call it a day and put this video together, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Cheers!